Hello. I am going to quote to you something said by Rhiannon Graham, one of the people in the dock over the pulling down of the Edward Colston statue. And this is what she said. Hang on. I've got to point out that people have been saying Colston may have been a slave trader, but he also donated to orphanages and schools and that sort of thing. And this is her answer. Jimmy Savile also donated to schools and hospitals, but I'm sure I speak for everyone here when I say we don't want a statue of Jimmy Savile in our city. And she doesn't see the problem here. I'll get back to that statement in a minute. Meanwhile, I'm going to tell you a few things about Rhiannon Graham. She is by profession a lighting rigger. Okay, and it was this that enabled her to position the rope with which they used to pull the statue down. Toppling Colston's statue was an act of allyship and solidarity, says accused. A woman accused of helping to pull down the statue of Edward Colston in Bristol said she was acting out of allyship and solidarity with people of colour, a court has heard. Now, you'd think people of colour could manage things for themselves, wouldn't you? Rhiannon Graham, I don't know, I may be mispronouncing that. Rhiannon Graham told Bristol Crown Court on Monday she knew the bronze memorial to the slave trader. This is, by the way, written in The Guardian. So he was a slave trader, according to The Guardian. As a matter of fact, he was a fabric trader, a wine trader. I mean, you know, he did a lot more. He did trade slaves, but that wasn't actually his principal business, as far as I've heard, but not in The Guardian. Okay, was a source of offence for many Bristolians, and that the council had not responded to calls for it to be removed before the Black Lives Matter protest she attended last year. Giving evidence in her defence, Graham described how she brought rope to the protest, so she, as they say, went equipped, used her expertise as a lighting rigger to tie a noose around in it, passed it to others to attach around the neck of the Colston statue, then helped pull it down. Asked by her barrister, I'm not even going to try that name, you'll see it written there, what she hoped pulling down the statue would show, Graham replied, "That was my expression of my allyship and solidarity with people of colour. I believe that by removing that statue, we were removing a symbol of the great harm and oppression that towered over our community and offended so many. I believe that act was an act of compassion and solidarity, not violence." All right, I'm going to tell you something about Rhiannon Graham. She's a lighting rigger, so it means she works for the media. It means she works on local. Lighting rigger is somebody who, sets up lighting on media shoots, you know, films and adverts and that sort of thing. So what she's done here in the media environment is not going to lose her job, unless, of course, she gets arrested, in which case they'll forget about her, but that's another matter. It will, though, gain her kudos in the lefty environment of the media, so it might even ratchet up her career a little bit. She is herself a product of that media. She swims among them. And the other thing about her, which I am particularly impressed by, is that it seems that, like many people in the media, she doesn't appear to know the difference between, play acting and real life. She pulled down that statue because that statue was almost a living thing to her and a constant insult to the world. And then she says, what I quoted before, was that she would have had the same disrespect for a statue of Jimmy Savile. It didn't seem to occur to her that Edward Colston died in 1721. That's exactly 300 years ago. 300 years, at a time when slavery existed all over the world. It wasn't nice, but everybody did it, and none more so than the Ottoman Empire. Now, by comparison, the British were very, very small fry, but that's neither here nor there. Colston did trade slaves, not many of them, and that wasn't the main cause of his wealth. However, he did trade slaves, but so did everybody else in the entire world. And she's comparing him with Jimmy Savile. And she doesn't seem to know what the difference is there. Also, as I said, white people were taken as slaves in the Ottoman Empire. I don't see her worrying too much about that. And white Europeans bought slaves from Africans. They went to Africa. They couldn't go in the interior. It would kill them in days. They stayed on the coast and they bought the slaves, which came from African chieftains who wanted to get rid of political prisoners or criminals, and Arab slave traders who might have brought slaves over, because they did that too. Anyway, it seems that she got this change of mind when she read a book. A turning point had been reading the book Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race by Rennie Edo Lodge, Graham said, which made her reassess the casual racism she'd grown up with as a child in Norfolk. Well, I don't know whether casual racism, what's that? That's just tactlessness, isn't it? The point is, were they so racist that they turned her into a racist? I suspect not. So she's just backbiting on the people she grew up with. That's all that's happening there. Her voice shook. Oh, for goodness sake, as she told the court, I never considered myself racist, but I don't think I ever experienced the daily experience, the English of it, of a black person. I felt like I'd been a terrible ally. What a fool. It was the realization of the privilege I have just because of the skin colour I have that made me feel like I have to stand in solidarity for black lives. I mean, the woman has a psychological problem there. It's a self-worth problem, and it's almost certainly got nothing to do with the colour of her skin. She's just looking for an excuse. When I saw that, I decided to look for this book, Why I Don't Talk to White People Anymore About Race or whatever, and just to see what it was about. I find out what other people thought of it, and I saw pages and pages and pages of people saying what a wonderful book it was, how marvellous it is, how everybody should read it, and maybe I will get round to reading it sooner or later, but I don't expect much of it. And absolutely, in 14 pages on Google, I didn't see anything critical. Not a thing. And that in itself is a bad sign. There was such a terrifying uniformity of opinion and even phraseology. And I'm suspicious, anyway, of somebody who writes a successful and highly lucrative book, which is bought mostly by white people. And it's written by somebody who says white people don't understand black people. And one of the things I did find, though, was this. Review. Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. In the first of a new blog series from members of the British Veterinary, Ethnicity and Diversity Society, which of course has a bunch of initials. BVEDS. BVEDS. Alistair Wilson considers a book from the BVEDS reading list which comes highly recommended for anyone keen to broaden their understanding of racism and racial bias. Yes, we're talking here about the Veterinary Times talking about race. Don't they have better things to do? Battery chickens, abandoned pets, a cure for leishmaniasis, anything. But no, the British Veterinary Ethnicity and Diversity Society is talking about race, not about the animals that vets are supposed to be looking after. And I suppose that encapsulates everything. A lighting rigger pulls down a statue of a 300-year-old general philanthropist, comparing him with Jimmy Savile, and all that on the strength of one book she read by a very rich person who became rich by telling white people what stinkers they are, and a British Veterinary Society that's not talking about animals. I'd like to say the world's gone mad, but that's going to make me sound incredibly old. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.